For years, the #1 selling bedding plant in America was the petunia. And even though today impatiens are the most popular of our annual flowers, petunias still come in at a close second. Petunias are actually tender perennials grown as annuals. So botanically, they're not a true annual, which germinates, flowers, and sets its seed and dies all in one year. Where winters aren't so cold, petunias actually come back the next year from underground root parts. Petunias are in the family Solanaceae, or the nightshade family, along with plants such as tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, and tobacco. In fact, the word petunia comes from the Brazilian word petun, which means tobacco. And note that I did say petun and not spittoon. Well, petunias have been greatly hybridized throughout the years from a few plants, a few species petunias native to certain areas in South America. One of the plants is the Petunia axillaris, a white flowering species, and another one is Petunia integrifolia, like we've got right here. You see with the small purple flowers with the dark centers. This is one of the ancestors of a lot of our modern petunias. We've been growing Petunia integrifolia here at our studio garden for about the last 4 or 5 years, and we really like the plant. It seems to have really good heat tolerance, and we get quite a bit of color from these small flowers. Plus, I think there's just something interesting about growing one of the parents of a lot of our modern hybrids. Well, as you can see here, the flowers of this original species are quite small. Whereas if you look at some of the other petunias in this garden, you can see that throughout the years of breeding, the flower sizes have gotten larger, and we also have a lot more different colors. Today, petunias are divided into two main groups, the grandifloras and the multifloras. The grandifloras have larger flowers, but the multifloras, with their bushier growth habit and smaller flowers, actually give us more color because they produce more of them and they produce them over a longer season. Probably the best group of petunias for Oklahoma are a type of multifloras that have been modified or improved called the floribundas. The floribundas are just multiflora petunias that have been bred to have larger flowers. And that's what we have mostly planted in this petunia garden. Well, another type of petunia in the multiflora group are the millifloras. And this is a term that's just recently been coined for a series of petunias called the fantasy series. We call these the milliflora petunias. They don't really look like they have 1,000 flowers right now, but these tight, compact plants, if given the right conditions, can have just hundreds of these small flowers, enough to where the plants are almost completely covered. The fantasy series comes in about 8 different colors. We've got a few here in this garden. Well, in addition to the different groups of petunias, we can have lots of variations or different characteristics within the groups. We can have petunias that have double flowers, we can have those with frilly edges, we can have color variations like halos, picotees, or even stars in the center of the flower. Other variations include plants with variegated foliage, or flowers that have a lot of veins in the petals. We also have a lot of plants that have been getting a lot of popularity lately that are the trailing or the cascading or the wave type of petunias. Well, right back here we have a really unique variegated petunia growing in this container. This is one that we're trying for the first time this year. It's known as the Color Splash Petunia. And you can see it's not just real vigorous. We've kind of lost some of the plants here in this container. But with these nice pink flowers and crisp white variegated foliage, I think it's still well worth growing. Well, right over here we've got one of the trailing type of petunias, this white one. It's part of one of the groups known as the Supertunias. And we have other trailing types of petunias that are probably a little better for Oklahoma than the Supertunias. Back here are a good example of some of the veined type of petunias. And the veining type of petunias always perform really well for us. This one's part of the Madness series. It's called Plum Krazy. You can see those darker veins down in the center of the flower. I've heard a few rumors that in the future there may be a vein petunia that has crisp white petals with dark red veining. We'll have to keep our eye out for one like that. The Surfina type petunias are also a very good group that have this veining type in some of their flowers. They perform very well for us. Right back here you can see sort of a red magenta type color in this petunia. This is one of the tidal wave petunias. This one's called Tidal Wave Cherry. And this is just one plant. We planted this in the spring and you can see it's filled in just an incredible area. But the Tidal Wave Cherry has been a really good performer for us the last 2 years. Well, right up in front of that one is one of the Wave series of petunias. This is the Misty Lilac Wave, and we've got about 3 plants planted in this location, and it's also doing a very good job of filling in and covering up the area. Back in 1995, we had the first wave petunia that became available to us, and that was the Purple Wave, and everybody really liked that one. We've got it planted here in a container, and you can see how it spills out of the container and drapes down the side. It's grown in probably more shade than it would be happy receiving right here. But the Purple Wave, still a good petunia for our Oklahoma gardens. Another type of petunia that's really gaining in popularity in southern cottage gardens are the antique or the old-fashioned petunias. These are just the open pollinated offspring of a lot of our older petunia varieties that come up from seed every year in the garden. These older petunias in colors of purple, lilac, white, and pink are very fragrant. They're also a little bit tougher than some of our modern hybrids when it comes to heat and disease resistance. Well, another plant from South America that's closely related to the petunia that our garden centers have only been carrying for the last 4 or 5 years are the Calibrachoas. Now, like the word petunia, the word Calibrachoa represents the plant's common name as well as its botanical name. Sometimes the word Millionbells is mistakenly used for the common name of Calibrachoa, but that's not the case. Millionbells are a trademarked line of Calibrachoa marketed by the Proven Winners plant program. We do have non-Millionbells Calibrachoa. A good example of those different Calibrachoas are right here. This is a type of Calibrachoa known as the Liricashowers. This one's called Blush White. You can see it has a white outer petal with kind of a purple and yellow center throat. The Liricashowers Calibrachoa also have a lot finer leaves. They're very small. So this mix-up has caused a little bit of confusion. The Terra-Cotta Millionbells Calibrachoa, like we have in this container, is a very unique plant in that it gives us a color that we don't get with petunias. This sort of salmon or clay pot terracotta-like color. Also kind of splashed with a magenta or sort of a maroon color. It just gives us a little bit different dimension in the petunia-like plants. Well, petunias and Calibrachoas share the same cultural requirements. They like a position in full sun in a soil that's fertile, well-drained, and that doesn't stay dry for very long. In the summertime, petunias and Calibrachoa will benefit from a liquid iron application, especially in areas where the soil is alkaline or they're being watered with water that has a high pH. Another thing we do to our petunias is to periodically spray them with Bacillus thuringiensis. The reason for that is because we get a lot of the caterpillars on the plants, and this is the particular caterpillar we have problems with. This particular caterpillar has a lot of different names. It's also the same caterpillar that eats the corn on our ears of corn. So it's the corn earworm. It also gets on tomatoes, where it's known as the tomato fruitworm, and also the soybean podworm. So pretty much any plant it's on is the name that you give it. So we could call it the petunia budworm because it likes to eat the buds, the flowers, and the leaves of our petunias. But the BT will take care of the caterpillar. Well, I hope you continue to enjoy these colorful, ever popular plants, the petunias, and their close relatives, the Calibrachoas.